So let's just close our eyes and come fully present in this moment, body and mind. So the request this morning for meditation was finding peace in the midst of anxiety. And I kind of flipped it to talk about anxiety in the midst of peace. So we can experience that feeling either way. If we know, because we've stopped in the silence, in the stillness, at many points, perhaps, in our so-called spiritual journey, we might come to realize that peace is not actually someplace else. It is right here, right now, when we're not trying to be somewhere else. So, of course, when experiencing anxiety, our minds want to be somewhere else. That's natural. And sometimes it works. We can distract ourselves. That's okay. But when you know that everything arises out of this peace that is our presence, that is our awakeness, that is our true nature, that everything comes from source, eventually, regardless of how many twists and turns it may take, weaving itself through conditioned mind, conditioned body, conditioned feelings. Still, everything has the same source, ultimately speaking. Even our most challenging emotions. So when you come at a challenging emotion from this perspective, there is a little bit more space for it to be what it is, because we're not necessarily attached to the person having it who should not be having it according to our judging mind. So when you feel into the space, the vastness, the peace of your true nature, it doesn't mean that that is going to be the only experience you have in this life. Clearly, every experience appears whenever it appears. And we don't have to judge right or wrong, good or bad, when we're just seeing what is. So from the perspective of our clear seeing, our open heart, our awareness that is vast and spacious and open, what we call anxiety might appear. And sometimes it appears very often, just reading the news or watching the news on television. There are things that arise in the world that might cause feelings of anxiety. And there certainly are things that might arise in your own conditioned mind that causes one to feel what we would call anxiety. So one of the first things in terms of working with this particular experience called anxiety is to just allow it, number one, to be what it is. Not attaching to it, but not pushing it away. Perhaps a more useful attitude in the beginning is just curiosity. Wow, I'm really feeling anxious right now. Can I look into it? Can I be present to it? Can I allow it to be here without thinking I have to immediately do something to get rid of it or to fix it? So right away, when we have a more relaxed attitude toward anything, really, it just gets to be what it is. It gets to deliver its experience. The thing about anxiety, it's usually based on some belief. The belief may be conscious, but it may be unconscious. But to believe that particular belief, the body responds. The mind has a thought, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, and the body responds by feeling anxious about it, when actually the belief was neither true nor untrue. It was simply a belief that really didn't hold truth, but rather opinion. So, as I say, the first thing is to allow there to be some space around the feeling, whatever it is. It's by being curious. The mind will say, how do I get rid of it? But our true nature isn't trying to get rid of anything. It simply illuminates what is here without judging what is here. So the more that your mind can even consider this possibility, the more open you may be to have an experience that the mind wishes you weren't having. But here it is. But here it is. And almost the moment that we are not resisting what is, there's a bit of relaxation often. If not relaxation, we could call it softening. There's a way that the mind begins to soften when it's not fighting, when it's not resisting, when it's not judging. And the judgment isn't simply about anxiety or fear or sadness or anger or whatever feeling we may find troublesome. The issue at hand is our identification of a self who's having the experience that he or she should not be having according to the judging mind. That identification is actually the barrier to noticing what is from a perspective of peace, from a perspective of clarity. So if we want to become more curious about anxiety, we could ask, well, where is that anxiety, that feeling of anxiety, where is it located in my body? Where am I feeling it? And then we could just simply invite our awareness inside that sensation, because we are talking about a sensation here. We're not talking about a person who's right or wrong for feeling what they're feeling. We're talking about a sensation that's either being judged or not judged. So once you invite awareness inside the sensation, you get to see what begins to happen. We're not trying to analyze it, get rid of it, hold on to it. We allow the feelings or the experience to shift if it does. Because whatever we're talking about here, we're really talking about letting everything be as it is. The mind gets very fearful, thinking, well, then it'll always be this way. So the mind immediately attaches time and the fear of something that will go on endlessly to the moment. But that's not necessary. You might question whether it is. Is it necessary to project this into the future? This is what's happening now. This is my experience now. It is simply that, an experience. Perhaps it says nothing about my worthiness or my awakeness or my value in the world. So what we're doing in being able to really be intimate, we might say, not separate from the feeling, is we're taking it out of the realm of self-image and allowing the true self to simply illuminate what's here and perhaps offer a wise or loving or compassionate response. We're not pretending to know ahead of time that that will happen or what it might look like or feel like. We're just open to the experience and to being awake within it. So this requires some courage at times. And there are certain feelings that are extremely difficult to be with, as they say. Just be with it. Something's already being with it. Do you know that? Do you know that peace that's already just being? Not even with something as though it's apart from it, but it's being that experience. What's awake and aware cannot be separated from the moment. It's the knowing of the moment. What knows you're anxious? What knows you're fearful? What knows you're angry? What knows you feel loving or joyful? So as soon as we've unhooked, even for a moment, from attaching a self-image, an I thought, to the feeling that's arising, we're actually free. We're free to have the experience that's here, and we're free to know that dimension of ourselves that's not threatened by it, even if the mind feels threatened. And that's something that one must experience. It's not something you can produce by thought, but I'm sure some of you, maybe most of you, have experienced this at times. Where there's a recognition that something's completely okay, even though the mind is totally wound up in the moment, or feelings seem to be knotted up in some place in the body, and something's actually still okay. So I'm going to stop speaking about all of this and just invite you for the next little while to investigate a feeling that you may be having now, or perhaps one that is part of your habit pattern, the habit pattern of your mind, that you yourself will know gets cranked up in certain situations over and over and over again. These are habit patterns. So however you want to look into the matter or feel into the matter, be present within whatever it is you choose to look at, just spend a little time allowing it to be as it is, but realizing that it's simply an expression, an experience that does not define a self in any way, shape, or form. So we look into the matter as much as possible without attaching it to a self-image. This is what causes so much suffering. Attaching our feelings to a self-image that then we take to be an identity. This is not actually necessary. It happens, but even as it happens, there's something that notices it's happening if we become open and sensitive to our experience. So have whatever experience you want to have, but allow it to be as it is. realizing that anxiety or anything else actually comes out of the peace that you're searching for, because it's an expression of this life that manifests right from that peace, vast, mystery, ground, source. Whatever name is not the thing, but it's here. If we have eyes to see, ears to hear, body to touch the infinite, that you actually are, this moment and every moment. So we'll sit maybe for about 10 minutes, and then I'll invite the bell to ring, and you can investigate, experience, play with whatever comes to you as something that you're interested in exploring.